We're out here today taking this time to take a little bit of advantage of some off-season scouting. I don't usually like to come out here much when the deer are on our property in general. They don't usually typically stay through most of the winter just because of the food availability and the amount of cover that we have. We can usually keep deer here till about January, end of January, and then they usually venture half mile to a mile away on other properties or other farms that I can hunt. So we're out here today, we're doing a little off-season scouting. Just kind of wanted to show you guys some of the work that I did last year, what's working for me, what's not working for me. I'm gonna go through some of the stands that I have on the property and how I'm gonna maybe adjust them and hopefully make them better in the future. This is the first spot we're hitting up here. We got the baronet blind right by the food plot. Last year, I planted this little strip. It's probably about a half acre along the edge here, just in corn. And then the back part of the food plot here, the big field, we decided to do about half in clover on the inside and the outside half into beans. Food plot was looking phenomenal last year. And then about mid-July, we had a hailstorm come through and it just absolutely annihilated most of my food plot. The corn kind of came back, had some good sits here in November in the baronet. There was really no effect on the clover. That ended up turning out awesome for the first year food plot of that, but the beans really got annihilated. It took a lot of the leaves off, and there were still pods on. It started coming back, but unfortunately by eliminating a lot of those leaves that would shade out a lot of the weeds and stuff like that, eventually the weeds just kind of outcompeted the beans, unfortunately, and it just drowned out the whole plot. It was late enough in the summer where we probably could have came back in and dissed it under and put winter wheat in, but I kind of just decided last year to let it go out, and then this year we're really going to just start completely over from scratch. One of the issues we have here on these food plots, it's really wet soil. We get a lot of wetland weeds in it that are very hard to kill. So you're consistently having to spray them. And then when you get instances like this where the beans got knocked out, the weeds came back, and obviously they seeded out, and we're going to be basically starting over from scratch again this year. So we're going to probably this spring hit it with glyphosate, and then maybe do it once or twice more in the summer, and probably just work it into a fall plot this year. I'm not going to put any corn or beans in it. Just really dedicate this year into maintaining the weeds in it, getting that established again, and then just putting some sort of fall mix in. Had some really good sits here. The couple times I sat in the blind this past year, encountered a few good up and coming bucks, young deer, does, fawns, but not any of the target bucks we were after. You can see behind me what I actually did this past summer. One of the issues I had in this spot is these deer can really access the food plot from anywhere. So what I wanted to do is really confine it down to a 50-yard area right here on both ends of the pond. So I came in last summer, me and my dad, and we put up snow fencing along the north side and along the west side here. And what that allowed was the deer to have to enter into this primary area, which a lot of times they naturally do, but occasionally we'll get deer coming just out in random spots of the food plot. But it really forced them into entering this corner of the plot where they would immediately be in bow range when they came out. It worked really well. Unfortunately, not on a big buck this last year. But as you can see, the snow kind of took down some of the fence here, so we're gonna have to reestablish that this summer. That'll be another project for us, but it worked out amazing. Back behind me here, how I set this west end up with the snow fence, we actually created a little backdoor entrance into the blind where I can come in through the pines, sneak into the food plot. So if there is even deer late into the evening, right at dusk, or out in here when you come in, sometimes you could sneak in here without them even knowing. And having this corn up, it kind of helped screen some of that cover so you could slip in and out undetected. But that is pretty much it for the pond here. We're gonna head back into some of the stands. I'm really excited to get into the woods. I don't typically do much scouting at all in the woods most of the year. We got some hinge cutting stuff that me and Aaron did a couple years ago that I haven't even been back in the bedding to check out in quite a while. So I'm excited to look at that and just see what some of the other sign is on the property. So come along with, and we'll see what we got. We're here at our first stand location. This is probably one of my top 3 favorite stands on the property. It's set up more for a west wind. We can access it from the field to the east. Kind of get in here pretty undetected. We got a little bit of open hardwoods behind it. Last year, put a scrape vine here on this logging road. I think it was 3 years ago now. My dad's property was logged, and they left some of these logging trails in here, and we've just maintained them over the past few years so we can get in and out of here with the four-wheelers and things like that. So put a scrape vine here. There's kind of 2-3 different trails that intersect here, and I ran a camera here on video mode last fall and had a lot of bucks hitting this. A lot of activity. Sat here a couple times and had some good sets of bucks hitting the scrape during the rut early November. One thing in this stand I want to do a little bit different this year is the problem I have with it is we're about 75 yards off the field edge here, and a lot of times it's kind of a 50-50 split. These deer will either come through here or they come on the back side of the stand and work along the field edge. So I've been just trying to find a way that we can prevent them from coming more on the downwind side of you. One of the issues that we have hunting here in central Wisconsin is we don't have a lot of terrain features to funnel deer down. So sometimes you got to get creative. And over the past few years, like on the food plot, we've established putting up fences up, brush piles, knocking trees down, anything that you can do to kind of just push these deer more towards your stand to hopefully benefit you more, getting them close in the shot range. So I think what we're going to do actually this upcoming season, once the snow melts, come in here, and I'd like to cut a trail that these deer can actually run, be northeast to southwest, angle it towards the stand, and then put some sort of blockade, whether it's trees or a snow fence, something to kind of keep them deer from coming on the downwind side, working that field edge, and using that more for our access and forcing them to, when they wind check this side, to come more into bow range in front of us. I'm gonna try it this year, not sure how it's gonna work. I'm sure there's gonna be still deer that'll slip along that backside, either go out on the field or whatnot, but just trying to do anything possible that we can to hopefully prevent them from getting on the downwind side of us and putting them in front of us for a shot and bow range. We had a good encounter here this last fall with a solid 3-year-old 8-pointer, and that's exactly what he did. He was working right straight at our stand, and we had a nice west wind day, and he decided to cut about 25-30 yards along the field edge. I've thought about putting a stand there to sit, but about the time you do that, then they come working through here. So I don't want to get too many stands or too many options. Just trying to pick the stands that I have that I know that these deer utilize these trails a decent amount, and try and just make them better through either manipulating their travel and things like that. But was very happy with this mock scrape this year. These deer really tore this up all fall. We have a couple on the property that I'm probably gonna move them around a little bit. They didn't perform as well, but we'll get to that here in a minute. But we're gonna keep going in. We got some hinge cuts up ahead, and we're gonna get kind of pushing more into the bedding here and see how things look in there. But it looks like they got a decent trail right here. It never used to be like this, but I bet when we hinge cut that a few years back, it kind of blocked them from coming through over there. Let's go check that tree out. We just came to a spot on the north end of our property here. I haven't had a stand on this end probably in 8 to 10 years, I would say. I decided to leave this more undisturbed quite a while ago, but after logging and stuff, we haven't really done much up in here. And I do have a stand about 100 yards to the west of here more, It's set up more for gun hunting on a south wind. It's not really, wasn't really designed for bow hunting at all. I sat it a couple times last year, had a couple decent sits with it, but I was always a little bit concerned because most of our bedding is off to the northwest here, and you're really pushing the envelope over there on getting in close with these deer. But this is a spot, actually, Aaron and I came in here a few years ago and hinge cut 20-30 yards to the northeast of here, and last year when we got that big storm, it blew down a lot of these bigger maple trees and stuff. So back behind us here, there's just a lot of tops blown down, and it doesn't look like these deer are really traveling through here to the north like they used to. There's a trail, you can still kind of see the deer we're using about 25 yards south of the stand, and it's just nice and open right here. And it's got a natural trail that goes right to the bedding. So I really like this. I think we're gonna actually move a set in here next year. I never really planned on putting a stand back in here, but I don't have a lot of south wind options on this farm. Everything's really more for hunting northwest winds, how everything lays out. So it'd be nice to get another stand so we can hunt a south. I'm pretty excited about this. This actually looks really good right now. We might actually come in and on the back side of us here, even drop some more trees, just make it more thick and nasty, so these deer don't want to come on that downwind side of you. It's going to force them to come through this opening more. We're back in here where me and Aaron did some hinge cutting a couple years ago. Just walked through here and a little bit of mixed results. Some of these trees, we were in here a little bit, I think, too early. It was still fairly cold out in March, so some of these trees didn't make it. I'd say probably at least half didn't hinge over right, and so, but the ones that did make it look pretty good. I think we'll just have to wait, come back in here a little bit later in spring when things warm up more, and try and do more hinge cutting here and create a little bit more cover on this end. I really like how this lays out right now, because where we just were to the east, looks like there's a couple old deer trails from some deer from the previous snow that came through out of this here where we hinged and headed up towards that stand we were just looking at maybe hanging in this year. So they're using it how we want to. We just got to come back in here, I think, and create a little bit more cover. I wish we'd have waited maybe another couple weeks on it, but it's the first time doing this, so we're just kind of learning as we go. We're at one of my favorite stands on the entire property. This is a stand or location where I shot lefty out of a few years ago. A lot has changed since then, since we logged it. And last year when we had the storm come through, we actually had the stand that I had the set hung in. 3 of the trees around it blew down, knocked the stand down where we had it hung. So we had to move it to this oak tree here. I never actually even hunted this stand last year. The buck I was targeting, never had pictures of the entire season through here. Been getting them on the property, just not in this particular spot. And just how things rolled out last year, never got in here to really try it. We had a camera right here on a scrape vine. Scrape vine wasn't getting tore up, but I think we're gonna actually have to move it. A lot of the pictures I was getting were deer coming out of another trail about 10-15 yards to the south of it. So I think if we move it back there where that intersects more, we'll get a little bit more activity on that scrape vine. But this is a great spot. Just looking at it right now though, this stand looks a lot more open than it did when we hung it in July. So probably gonna have to come in here and maybe try and put a little bit more cover up in that tree some way. Excited to sit this stand again. Like I said, I haven't sat it. Didn't sit it last year. Sat this couple times the previous year. Had some good sits in here, just not after the buck we were after. So we kind of neglected this part of the farm last year. We'll go over here and check out the scrape vine and kind of show you what I did last year here also. So I was thinking of moving the scrape vine over here. We got where a trail tees right here, this logging road that we cleared out. And what I did last year to the west here, when I hunted this in the past, I kept getting deer that would come through these tag alders and run this strip of tags north and south. So we came in here and put a little bit of a blockade of snow fence to force them on the east side of it into range about 20-30 yards. If they decide to cheat and come through the tags, they have to come right through us. But a lot of the deer that I was getting on camera were actually coming right down this and then heading into the east into this little thicket. So we should be able to get a shot right here, but we're gonna move that vine here more. I think we'll get a lot more pictures on it just by moving it only 10 yards. I'm excited to get back into this stand. Like I said, this is one of my favorite stands. I just need a buck to start using it how some of the other bucks I've been targeting in the past have used this chunk of the property. We're getting more on the west end of the property here. We're at a stand that I've had in this tree now for a few years. Prior to logging, we actually had this brushed north and south here to blockade a lot of the deer traffic down to right here. Since logging, it kind of reopened everything up and never really came back in to blockade it back up again. Just didn't really know how the deer were going to react to the logging, so we wanted to wait a few years to kind of make a judgment on how I wanted to resituate stuff. This stand is actually set more for a northwest wind, which is okay, but you do run into the risk of deer coming on the backside here. There's a couple ditches that they like to travel also. The main objective of the stand though is for these deer to utilize this logging road trail system I had and work it past the stand, work past the scrape vine, and hopefully into range. The last couple years I've sat it, they just haven't been doing what I've been wanting them to do, and I think it's time to kind of readjust this set. My overall goal is to get more south wind setups on this property, so this would be a great spot to do it. We have a stand or a tree over here about 30 yards. It's a split maple, or sorry, a split popple tree that we could get up in. But what we'd have to do is do a lot more clearing, probably make this opening a little bit bigger, which will require a lot of just manual work, removing logs coming in here, and knocking a lot of this brush down, spraying it, and then probably open it up more. And then maybe even if we have it open up more, I might work it up a little bit and put some winter wheat in here, just something to draw a little bit more deer traffic into. I'm gonna move the scrape vine a little bit closer to the stand. Just how it lays out, it sets up perfect to where I can access to the north. The deer bed to the northeast of us here more, so we shouldn't really blow our wind into their bedding, but this would be a great morning setup. We can get in here early without having to come anywhere through the food sources to get into the stand. I think by opening this up more, it's going to create a little bit more of a funnel here. How it's set up right now with this trail, they have to kind of snake through, and I think that's part of the reason why they don't want to use this as readily as how it was originally set up a few years ago prior to logging. So I think my overall goal this summer would be, or this spring, would be to come in here and just clear this about another 10-15 yards to the north, and then keep this trail maintained, keep this opened up for maybe even putting a small plot in here during hunting season. And I think it would set up great for the access then. And then to the south here more, we're gonna set up for more of a north wind, closer to our road that comes in on the property. Well, we're at a spot on the property that it's actually right off our main road that we drive in here, heads up into the pond by the food plots. And last year, I just had an extra camera laying around, so I decided to put one coming out of this logging road throughout the season, just because it's the area of the property that I've always just overlooked, and I use it more for access. So I just decided not to really ever put a stand over here. Well, lo and behold, my top target buck I've been hunting now for the last few years, twice in November I had him in daylight walking down this road. So kind of reevaluating my plan of attack on him for this year. We're gonna put a stand up right along this edge of this road. We're gonna open this up maybe a little more for better shooting, and put something here, maybe a vine or something for them to work a scrape along this edge when they travel this. There's not a lot of tree options here. We got one popple tree. It's got a pretty good lean to it on this side of the road. Sets up for a northwest wind. Perfect. It's gonna be tough to get a 2 hang-on sets in it. So I think what we're gonna do, I think we got enough cover to put a ladder stand in it, and then we'll probably be able to get a hang-on above it. But we'll be able to access from the south along the field edge and come in, so we'd never have to even walk down the road and put any of our scent down this. But this is probably, it's kind of an experiment stand this year, and I'm very excited for it. So we're gonna try it out this year, see how it goes. I don't get a ton of deer activity up through here, it seems, but my best buck I've been after, this is where he's using. I got most of my pictures of him in November coming down through here in October. So I got to switch something up, because some of my current stands just aren't in spots where I've been running into them the past few years. So we're gonna probably come in here this summer and do a little work here and reposition it up for the fall, and we'll see. Hopefully it produces first year. We're in our final stand here. It's a stand I call the jack pine stand. It's just a big old jack pine tree on this property. It's a little bit south of the lefty stand that we were at a little bit ago, and it's east of the stand that we were looking at just previously down the road. This is a stand that I didn't hunt it all last year, but it is one of my favorite sets to hunt. Usually when we got a good buck in here to target, just because we're right on the edge of a lot of thick stuff. We're not super tight up against the bedding. We're kind of right in between bedding and where the deer head out to the food plots to feed. So we do get a lot of that transition movement through here, but it's a little bit of a observation set. I like this stand because you're in the game. It's a little bit of a low impact stand. You can access it pretty easy down the road in the mornings and in the afternoons, and cut them coming to and from bedding to feeding. I usually hunt this stand a little bit more in October, occasionally in November if I'm worried about a wind situation where I don't want to get too aggressive, or the pressure isn't super high to get into some of my better stands. Luckily we scathed the storm on this one, but I actually had to come in here last year and do a little bit of trimming and make a tunnel to get in here, because there's such thick brush blocking to the stand to access. It's a cool spot. It's one I look forward to sitting every year, and probably will spend a little bit more time in it this next fall. That's pretty much it for this scouting session on our property. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you could take a little bit of some of the stuff that I have going on the property and utilize it on your property this season. Follow along this year as we make some of these improvements that I mentioned throughout the video. And as always, give us a thumbs up, throw some comments if you got any questions about some of the stuff that we're doing that's related to deer management and stand setups and things like that. I'll be happy to answer them for you. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll catch you here in the next video.